call the meeting for the Town Council of Signal Mountain, Monday, July 25th, 2022. Has the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Second, short moment of silence. Okay. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Elizabeth Baker. Here. Councilmember Vicki Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Andrew Gardner.
Here.
Susanna Murdoch, Vice Mayor. Absent. Mayor Charles Haas.
Here. All right. We don't have any minutes to approve for this meeting. We have citizens' opportunity to address council. We're just going to do it once. We'll get it done at the beginning here. So if anybody wants to address council for this part of the meeting, go ahead. Okay.
I'm going to do that.
Okay, sure.
I will be quick. Thank you for indulging me for just a moment. My name's Gail Green. I live at 212 Grayson Road. Excuse the gum. I thought I had a meeting before I had to speak. Okay, I'm here because I saw that you all had the MAC board suspension on the agenda, and I don't know exactly what that means, and I'm interested to hear about it. But I just wanted to vocalize a couple of things. First of all, after the mayoral forum, I'm actually a little bit more concerned about the MAC oversight than I was before. And then secondly, as a concerned citizen, I would like to ask, when you're discussing it, that you consider that the Mountain Arts Community Center would need to follow town policy and or state laws according to public buildings. And so I think that that's something that might be able to help. Maybe an oversight board is a great idea. Maybe it's not such a great idea. I really don't know. I think division is a bad thing, but I think that some sort of oversight is a good thing. So maybe if there could be some sort of amendment or addendum to the lease with the SMEPF that said something about the fact that they would need to follow town building policies and state laws according to public buildings, since it is a public building and the town owns it, and maybe something like that, or even a document written by the town attorney explaining the difference in a private 501c3 as a tenant with $0 in public funding versus the current setup, which is a private 501c3 with funding and air conditioning and bills and grounds work and $1 rent for the year, because I feel like the waters get really muddy when you start looking at all of those funds that are coming from the town. And so I think to say, we have no oversight over our private tenant, yet they're in a public building getting a lot of public funding, I think that's something to think about, how we can make that, more transparent about what laws and policies need to be followed. So that's really all that I wanted to say and recommend and maybe suggest. I don't know where you all are going to land on the oversight board, and I know I've been saying oversight, but maybe just laying it out there that they're going to be held accountable as a public building to the same policies and laws that our town buildings are following. That might be really good.
Is there a particular state law or town building policy that they're not following that you wanted to follow?
Not at the moment. I don't believe so. And I know at the last meeting, several of you mentioned it was a moot point about some of the things that happened in the past. And I do understand that it is a moot point now, but if it can happen at one time, I think it can happen again in the future. And so as I was reading through the Signal Mountain Education Preservation Fund's blog entries and about how the biggest change at the MAC was the air conditioning and how the town partnership and the grounds work was wonderful, and I was thinking about all of those funds, those town public funds that are going into it, even though I hear it stated over and over again that they're not receiving any funding from the town. As a taxpaying citizen, I just feel like that could really be cleared up if we could have some language that articulates what laws and policies should be followed in a public building, which that is. And that's all I wanted to say. I appreciate y'all's time so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to address the council? Okay. Let's move on to the resolutions. We have one resolution. It is a resolution approving an employment agreement between the town of Signal Mountain and Elaine A. Brunel and authorizing the mayor to execute that agreement.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Does anybody have any questions? All right. There's some blank lines that obviously we would need to fill in. So any comments, questions? All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. All right. Well, that motion passes. And
Can I give a motion to suspend the rest of the meeting?
yes.
Second.
All right. So we have a motion and a second.
Sorry.
And that carried?
Yes.
Motion and a second to suspend the rest of the agenda. Any discussion? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. All right. Well, there we go. On to our next meeting. So, we've gone through I guess we'll call to order, the town council work session for Monday, July 25th, 2022. And I think we can dispense with the next few items except roll call, I guess. Is that okay? All right.
Yeah.
I guess we should have a roll call for this meeting.
Okay. Councilmember Elizabeth Baker.
Here.
Councilmember Vicki Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Andrew Gardner.
Here.
Vice Mayor Susanna Murdoch. Is absent. Mayor Charles Poss.
Here. Okay, we again don't have any minutes to approve. We've asked the citizens who want to address council, but I guess I should make it open again just in case anybody changed their mind in the interim. All right. No resolutions or ordinances. We'll move straight to discussion items. First is the social media policy. We have a proposed resolution regarding the social media policy.
This would be something for next meeting, correct? We're just discussing it?
Yes, this is a resolution.
So I felt that this was really good. The one thing that I really liked about Chief Williams' police department social media policy is that they had definitions in it, which gave a real clear idea of, like, because when you say social media or, a comment, I was just wondering if you take a look at that and look at the comments or the descriptions or definitions, if we can give you that. I have a set here.
Of definitions. Oh, from there.
From Chief Williams, or the Mountain Police Department. Social media policy.
Is there one for everybody or just
No.
pass it from you? Okay.
No, I just have
Are these, is this kind of a policy kind of, it looks like it has some Facebook language in there, so does it come from Facebook or is it modeled after Facebook's policy?
So some of the language we've taken from the police department's social media policy. And and then another town social media policy, and then some of the Facebook language that we've already put on our Facebook page. And just kind of incorporated that into our overall social media policy.
I think like on page 3, the Facebook reference to me is like an example. Like this is a web page and this is a platform, which I guess is a little different.
Well, yeah, I mean, if we have an Instagram account or Twitter, we wouldn't have that particular language in there.
Right.
I printed out the Twitter rules, which I kind of like, in terms of things like civil integrity and misleading and deceptive identities. I don't know that we can use any of these, but I think they seem to do a good job of trying to police people.
That goes to, I'm looking at where it's talking about bots and that you'll be able to take those out. If you robo-spam, it's page, I think 3, where it says the town may also take steps to remove robo-spam and or comments by social bots. I was wondering kind of the same thing as Charlie about adding something about like people that are falsely, like have false identity, you know, they'll make up a whole person, and if there's a way to prove it and you know it, that you can remove them. I don't know if it's possible, but it seemed to fit right there, that if somebody comes in and makes a fake Facebook account and starts commenting on the town website and we know that it's fake, what can we do about it?
They kind of, I haven't seen the police one, but they give some definitions of things like hateful conduct, which we have fighting words and true threats and speech presenting a grave and imminent threat, imminent lawless action. They have a little bit of that, but then they kind of just define some terms. So people have maybe a little better understanding of what they should or shouldn't do. But I don't know, this is, I think you did a nice job putting it together. And I'll pass this on if you want to consider any of this stuff to add to it.
Yeah, I really liked it. I do wonder if we should include what platforms are approved for the town to have, and then if the town should decide to have those platforms like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Nextdoor, Pinterest. Like we could list out the platforms that
Are approved
and then in 3 years
for town purposes.
For town purposes, yes.
Obviously.
And then in 3 years from now, when all of those platforms are no longer useful to people, and there's new platforms, we could rewrite them. But, you know, it can be kind of you know, if there's something new out there, but that way we're not, you know, as any council member, not just me, or any of us, whoever sits up here next time, doesn't wake up on a Saturday and surprise, surprise, there's a Town of Sickle Mountain account somewhere where there wasn't before.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to update this
Well,
periodically, I guess.
probably. I mean, so on this one, which this is a county from Tennessee, I think. Yeah, they have listed Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Nextdoor, Pinterest, Snapchat, Twitter, YouTube. But they say, you know, this is it for the town. Like, these are the
For us, isn't that Facebook and Twitter right now? Is that right?
Yeah, and I'm not saying like this would mean like we would have to have them all.
Yeah.
That would be an operational decision.
We could approve.
But
Yeah,
they
I
could
think that's.
decide
Yeah.
to have whatever, but maybe not something that, you know.
So it's clear what we're going to use.
It might be good to have we have the, you know, the I guess that's the URL, right, for Sickle Mountain, Tennessee.
Yes.
.gov. To have the, what is it called, a Twitter name? Anybody know?
Your Twitter handle?
Handle, yeah. Because there's 2 Signal Mountain Twitter accounts. One is definitely fake. I got on there one day and it said that I love Signal Mountain because they give free vapes to everybody in the town. I'm like, I don't think that's a Signal Mountain Twitter, official Twitter page. But it looks like it when you look at it, so it might be good to designate what our actual social media sites are called.
And part of that is, as we use like the town email list, starting to get like those links to our site, which builds traffic and then means it's going to be the first one that pops up, not the vape site.
Yes.
As on our website, at the bottom of every page when we have a newer website, and then you can even put it in employee email signatures. But that's not part of the policy. That's just.
Well, and this, like that specific type of thing is not part of
Yeah.
this policy. But one thing it could be is like a social media action plan. Like what is, and that's not necessarily something the council does, but like what is, and it's outlined a little bit, what is the purpose of this? What are we going to accomplish with this? How are we going to accomplish it? And as we look at getting an IT person in and maybe somebody to help with social media management, that would be probably one of the most important documents to have for them, kind of like what their expectations are, what we want to accomplish. So I don't know if we want to put something in there, but in the policy about a social media action plan, but that could be an option.
When you talk about listing the sites that we have, it probably should be just an exhibit so that you can easily just replace Exhibit A with the new Exhibit A.
Yeah.
So we can reference, I guess it could be in 2.3 where we talk about that our main presence is the website.
But Exhibit A contains our.
Yeah, and other accounts.
Yeah.
Official Signal Mountain accounts include those listed as Exhibit A.
And then I have a question about limiting, would we make the decision about what platforms that would be good to have and what wouldn't? Like, are there any that we don't want to have? Like, do we not want to have Slack? Do we not want to have Snapchat? I mean, it's kind of how are we going to look at and determine that as a council?
I think
or are we going to let Elaine tell us what she's doing? She wants?
If we give the list of approved platforms,
Mm-hmm.
if it's not on that approved platform, then it doesn't exist for the town.
So
Right, but I
we
mean,
would make
it
that
could.
decision about what's approved.
Like,
Well,
when one becomes prominent and used by a lot of people, you'd want to
Well,
maybe join it and have an official Signal Mountain presence there. And you'd
Yes.
update your list.
And update your list, yes, but like, I don't think we need to have the approved list and the ones that aren't approved.
Right,
Just
no.
approved
Yeah,
list,
that's-
this is the ones operationally, it would be a decision which ones actually exist.
I think that's Vicky's question is,
That's
who decides
who decides?
which
Yeah.
ones
Well,
are official Signal Mountain web?
Is that
social media pages?
Is that a policy issue or is that an operational
That-
issue?
I see that as operational.
I do too. I see it as operational. That's why I'm asking, so that
Yeah.
that way, because what I don't want to do is limit Ms. Brunel to specific places. She could always come to us and say, this is what I'd like to do, but I would prefer to get the list from her and us be able to look at it and say, that's a good list and we can live with it, rather than us. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure whoever is going to select those platforms is the person that's really going to use it and have the expectations of it being used.
I should have asked you if you had any comments to start off with our social media policy that you prepared.
Well, I would like to say that, I didn't do it all by myself. Sam Ewan had really done a lot of the legwork. And so I really appreciate all the work that he's done, getting this document put together. And it's because it is kind of a beast. And so there are some things that we still need to address, and I think we're bringing up those topics here. And so as we solidify our social media policy and having these discussions, I think it's really important. But we've got something to now work off of.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. If, so at the beginning, Elizabeth was asking if this would be a resolution next time, but if you feel like you need to work on it some more and have us talk about it instead of having a resolution come up, that's fine too, I think. It's been a long time since we've had a social media policy, so we can wait a couple more weeks if necessary to get a good one.
Right, and based on this conversation and the information that you've provided, adding that into what we already have here and making it a solid policy, I think is important.
Yeah.
But then also, section 4 is, I wanted to bring your attention to it, is the employee acknowledgement.
Yes,
So
like that.
once it is approved, employees will be required to read and sign it, and then that copy will go into their personnel records.
That's good.
I do like the idea of having a glossary maybe, or a place that has the definitions of different things, so that everybody's on the same page. I think that clarity that Ms. Baker is speaking of is important.
Okay. Well, good work to
Good
you and
job.
Sam. Thank you.
Before we move on from that,
Yes.
I'm just going to do my duty as liaison for the Parks Board and say what would be next steps to enabling a board. Let's say we approve this next meeting, which may not happen. What would be next steps you guys think would be necessary for having a board, enabling a board like that to have a page operated in conjunction with Elaine's team that they can use to get information out about work days, things like that, and really encourage some community support for our parks.
Do they want a separate Facebook page like the police department has?
Yes, but I think that the way it can be structured is like it's administered through the town.
And wouldn't you want a Parks and Recreation webpage maybe, or have it be part of the town?
Yeah, it would be like official Parks and Recreation town, and that's the kind of those thoughts I sent from the Parks Board head, Lauren, who did this from the town side in Murfreesboro. The way she detailed the way they kind of had it set up, where they don't give, like, it's not where they're giving that access to post on the town Facebook parks page. It's that, in that case, Lauren, as an employee of the town, controlled that, and the Parks Board was like sending, hey, can we post this? And then she kind of like went to the policy and said, yeah, we're gonna, and it was never really a problem. I think it was.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the setup that they're looking for now, is
Yes.
to have it?
Have some way, just, they don't care who does, what the responsibilities are. They're happy to take more or less.
I think it's
But just to
important-
have the presence to be able to organize and
Yeah.
get the word
I mean,
out.
I think it's important, like I said, if we're looking at IT and social media, content manager, that sort of thing, I mean, that's gonna take up a lot of those responsibilities. But I think that it is really important that the person who is ultimately responsible for posting, I mean, I know that they have to gain approval from superiors, but ultimately the person that's posting should definitely be a town employee, not a volunteer, because of the accountability issue.
Yeah.
Or-
So I think
or-
that there's like ways that they can submit type it up and submit a
Yeah.
request and everything, and then that ultimately publishing it to the internet is the control of the town employee.
And regardless of how it gets, like whoever puts the publish button, I think the person that writes it, like, should be a designated from the, kind of a designated member of the committee, and maybe be made aware of this, and even could they would they be willing to, look at the policy themselves and sign it? I mean, we can add that in, and I also want to say that if we are going to do that for your board, then we need to be prepared to to do that for every board, you know,
And I think that's kind of where maybe like a social media action plan comes in, because look at how many boards we have. Look at how many days a week there are. Look at the amount of the information, like whether it's safety information or, you know, community information we went out there. There was a thing of overuse of social media too. So, yeah, I mean, I don't want to be like.
Well, this wouldn't be using the town, this would be setting up a separate page, but it's like, I think the way you set it up is a sub-page, kind of, but it would appear, I'm not a social media expert, obviously.
No, I mean, they would have to have their own page. They can't set up a page on.
Well,
or off.
in the back end administratively, you're able to have like, I think,
Yes,
the one login that's the final approver, I guess is what I'm saying.
yes.
Outwardly, it looks like a completely separate page.
I think, so you're talking about a Facebook page.
Yes.
I mean, at some point, we'll get a website that probably will have a page for Parks and Recreation and maybe a link to a Facebook from there, link to things, but the information about what's going on can be on the web page and then link to a Facebook page. That's all down the road, but I think in terms of Parks and the boards wanting a,
So I have a question, because it doesn't sound like the Parks Board wants it to be down the road.
No.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
My question is then, would it be reasonable for them to do maybe 4 posts a month or 6 posts a month on the town page? And when I say they do it, they don't do any of it. They reach out to you, or it would be Jared who they would reach out to, and then Jared could bring it to you, and then you could do it that way in this interim time period. Because I mean, I don't think that we're at a place where we can say, yeah, let's go ahead and let committees go ahead and do pages.
No.
You know, that's a lot to
I
manage.
agree.
But I appreciate their enthusiasm, and I know that their message is important, and we do have a Facebook page. So I wonder maybe if it's something like that, like they could reach out to Jared, and then Jared can let Elaine know.
Yeah.
Kind of a stopgap.
Yeah.
Right.
You know.
And I think that's appropriate method of communication, and they want to get something posted, just have that go through the staff liaison on the board, and then that person can then bring the information to me and we can get it posted,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
for approval. I think that's our immediate solution until we get through all of this. And
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
we're headed.
I don't want to go back again and tell them I don't have anything for them. And yeah, I don't want to squash, like, they're very
They're
enthusiastic.
No.
And enthusiastic and have a lot of awesome ideas, so.
absolutely, so just have that go through staff liaison, and we'll get it sent up and vetted and put on the website. Our Facebook page, stand corrected.
All right. My agenda. Lose my agenda. Here it is. All right, next is the sound system needs and quote review. I will let Elaine lead us on that. We have, it looks like,
Yes.
is this
That's me.
that's you? Okay. Is that from the Galt and Associates?
It is from the Galton, so yes, it's basically, before Elaine came, this is kind of what we were looking at. So I do agree with Ms. Baker when she said this is really an operational decision more than it is a council decision, but I did have it. And what this is I went through so that everybody understands what each piece, because you look at this, the description of the different components of an install, and it's complicated. So I went through and collaborated with Mr. Galt to provide everyone with just an idea and an overview on exactly what it is that he is saying that we need and why. And I do understand also that we have some equipment. I think the soundboard is good, and the mics are good. So this is really just about a camera streaming. So
And And I think that was one of my questions, is, like, this is about camera streaming. There's no microphone or audio support, correct?
There is an audio input that will allow, with wide dynamic range, that will allow streaming to happen with good sound quality based on what you hear through the PA, through the microphones. So it should, does that make sense? So we don't have to have new microphones. We don't have to have a new PA. We can marry the two different systems together. And I would like to also to say that I spoke with Mr. Luckey, and he's also willing to answer if we have questions that I don't know the answer to. He's an expert. So back there, Mr. Luckey's he's willing to answer.
So the first invoice was for troubleshooting sound and repairing problems.
That invoice is something that is that would be for after he sets everything up if something doesn't work. This is not something that we have to select. So this $800 would be something that if during the year something doesn't work, that we can call him and they'll come up and fix it. So otherwise, if something happens and we call them, they're going to bill us, but I'm not sure what their billing their hourly rate is.
I think, well, I don't know, have you taken the first steps to, like, get estimates? Or this came from Vicki?
Correct. This is an estimate from Galt and Associates.
I think it would be a good idea for us to have, like, more than one thing to look at.
Yeah.
There was another estimate from Mr. I think.
But that was all
Chief
before
Mitchell.
Lane came on board. I think
It was all,
just kind of get the information, maybe reach out to some people if she wants to get some estimates, and then put it together, and we can compare at that point.
Right.
And I think two quick things here. I think we need to kind of figure out what we want in a quote. Like, if we're doing upgrades on technology throughout with that type of thing, is there anything else that we just want to quote, not necessarily purchase, but just want to quote to see how much it is? The other thing is too, and I understand we got, like, this came in and it wasn't formal, but I think, like, in the future, any type of quote we get has to have line item amounts.
Right, it doesn't have line item
Like,
amounts.
there's, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 items on this, and there's just a total,
Right.
not a line item, and it gives me heartburn.
Yes, I spoke with Mr. Galt about that today, and he said that he is happy to give a line item amount to email it and to give it. I'm not sure why he didn't and I didn't catch it till today, so I talked to him today, and I said, so.
So what kind of things, I mean, we want to be able to live stream it easily without
The biggest thing, is can a board come in here and almost, I know nothing's push button, but almost push a button. Push a button and follow, 5 steps, maybe on a sheet of paper.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, you'll record the push button, record the meeting, turn it off, and then the next day, whoever is doing IT can then take that recording and post it on our webpage.
Yeah.
And make it easy like that.
Yeah. So this actually allows you to push some buttons and live stream during the meeting. So that's the difference. So
But it's got to record it too.
it'll be recorded onto the computer hard drive, but it also has the capacity to live stream it on either Facebook or YouTube, depending on where you want to send it. So, and it can be set up previously. What would happen is someone who is trained would come in and set it up, and then there would be directions for, if, let's say it's BZA coming in to meet and we want it live stream, that someone can set it up to live stream it, and then when they come in, there'll be 1, 2, 3. Here's how to do this. And what my wish is that it would be it would be technology that we can count on. Does that make sense? That we
it does,
that we know is going to work.
We're talking about this one quote, and I think what we're we want more quotes. And we want to make sure that all those quotes,
They're all
we're
aimed at the same thing.
Right.
They all know what we're looking for, and they're trying to deliver that.
So, and one thing I was a
So
little
we can
bit
compare.
like on the fence about bringing up, but I mean, I know that we had enough red faces while trying to months ago. So I'm wondering, like, are we, again, these are just quotes, is our work that's being done, but do we ask for, how do we get an easy projector type of system, whereas if we're up here talking about something that, like, I mean, Vicki brought this in today, which is great and helpful, and if this was something we were, you know, somebody brought something in to discuss, can we get it up on the screen for everybody to see? Like, and maybe not the drop-down screen, maybe there's another option, I don't know, I'm not a sound and video person, but I'm just wondering, like, if we're looking at technology, if we're looking at doing this for today and in the future, I think that we need to determine how far in the future we want this to go and what we want the quote to include. That's all.
Well, I think Andrew and I are definitely on the same page as far as ease of operation.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
And, you know, like Vicki's talking about, the system should be able to live stream and record for posting later. It should be easy to operate. And you're right, we have a screen over there that we could use.
An Elmo.
If we could figure out how to use it. We'd probably have some equipment to be able to, I guess.
Well, I mean, there's a projector hanging around somewhere.
Yeah.
Do we have an Elmo here? That was what you would need if you're an Elmo. That would be something that you could set up and you can put any live document under and it will project it. It's called an Elmo.
Or share a screen. Again, like, that's why I think we get a quote.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
we
so
can
I guess the
all-
question is like, do we want, I would say for me, as long as it's line itemed out, like I want to know, like, yeah, I can see the benefit of a projector or some ability to display from the computer, but if it's really expensive, maybe that's something for the future.
Exactly, but we don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
And
So
I
I
mean,
would,
I'm not saying
yeah,
that
say,
that's
I think it's a good, I mean, I've seen in the past, people have presented stuff up here and I guess they brought in their own projector. And yeah, in the future, there's going to be more and more kind of requirement, I think, to probably a lot of these things. And
Yeah. Like I said, I just wonder, like, again, just looking at quotes right now, but I would like every quote to have the same, quoting for the same purpose, you know?
yeah.
So are you familiar with what Elmo is?
Yeah.
You are?
No, not
Sort of, yeah.
Maybe a
If you
little.
could just talk about what
Okay.
Elmo is.
And Elmo is technology that allows anything that is like paper or a book to be placed under a camera. It's a camera that looks down and it'll show it on a screen. So that is now, and really, it's a good piece of equipment. But I'm certain there's stuff that's now probably that can that is better than that now. But it's basically just it's like a new overhead projector. Remember the overhead projector?
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I was
Remember
just-
overhead
That's what I was
projector?
saying. You don't have to have the clear copy.
Correct.
Yeah.
You don't have. You
Yeah,
can
yeah.
place this. You can put your hand under it and they can see it. You can point
doesn't
out
burn it.
things.
I mean-
no, it doesn't burn it.
In
Yeah.
my experience, if you want to display something on a screen, you PDF it and you use electronic copies.
Right, right. But
um,
if there is something that isn't electric, because she was talking about something here,
Yeah.
this, and so that's what
Yeah.
If we're looking
In
at
terms of the
paper,
quote, I think we would say some ability to put stuff on our screen, and they can, whoever you're getting a quote from can then
Right.
recommend an Elmo or the latest technology or what have you.
there's probably something later than an Elmo, so it's.
But, you're right, if we break these things out, because it may turn out that part of it is expensive and something we can do down the road versus putting it all together. We've budgeted, a certain amount to get an idea of what we're gonna do.
And I think it's like the sound piece is really important too, like, we're not being heard well tonight or in the several past couple meetings. So I want to make sure that people here can hear us as well as on the recording. And so I think like that's important to have in a quote.
Okay. All right.
Good job.
Next item is code revision.
far as this code revision goes, we have not updated our code in some years. And I have talked with MTAS about this, and the process is quite lengthy to go through. Essentially, we would go through line by line and make recommendations to council to clean up the code and make it more user-friendly, so to speak. You know, there's been just some codes and updates over the years, and going through and doing a codification of our complete code will give us a brand new document that we can then, you know, see clearly and work forward. But it is a lengthy process, and the resolution that is attached is a sample. But the cost for the codification is $7,300. They ask for half up front and then half when it's completed. So they estimate the completion for next budget year. So we do have money in the budget under admin for miscellaneous, and this would fit under that. So the earlier we can get it started, the sooner we can get it done. But it has been a number of years since the last time it's been done, and unfortunately we do have some books that are not complete.
And clean it up and make sure. So I have a question for you. Really appreciate this. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Is there a way for us, like if we go this route, can we pass, well, I suppose it would have to be an ordinance, maybe, as this is updated, that we update the language into non-gender, like we did with the ordinance last time. Instead of saying like in his absence, we say in the absence of the town manager. Can we do all of the ordinances with one action? Or would we have to pass a new ordinance for every single occurrence?
I guess you could have move to amend the ordinance to change the designation his to something specific, which would be like a change in everything in the entire document. But I don't know that that's a good idea, because it may not fit every.
No, I know. That's what my question was. Is I
Yeah.
don't think we can do it with one, which means we shouldn't do it individually.
I think you could do it with one. I'm not sure it would be a good idea.
But if we're having MTAS clean up, they can tell us all the instances where a
Yes.
gender-specific
True.
reference is made, and then we can go through
And redo those ordinances. Okay.
Yes.
I do like that idea. All right,
And so,
thank you.
what we're looking at is what's under here, the second service is the creation of a complete code, and that's where we would I would sit with MTAS and we would go line by line, and we would bring all those recommendations to council for final.
That'd be great.
approval. That's great. And so it's, you know, it'll be like a news code from what we have, but really going through line by line and, okay, let's change he, she to they, or, you know, just getting rid of those gender specific type of
Yeah,
wording.
and then that would all
Pronouns.
Okay.
Yes.
So-
Amazing.
Will they also provide like suggestions for best practice updates, or is this just kind of streamlining all the changes that have been made over years and making sure we've got getting the gender changes? Yeah, or are they coming and saying, oh, well, you guys are saying this and that's not even legal anymore, or something like that?
All of the above, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I know that when the planning commission redid the zoning, there were a lot of references, maybe not a lot, there were some references to specific provisions that didn't exist anymore. You found that, like maybe we had used, or sometimes we had used somebody else's code as an example, and then, but we didn't have a reference. We didn't have that code provision, but we were still referencing.
We saw that recently. Something that, oh,
It was, I think it was that same one last.
Yeah, right.
Last meeting, when it was giving you
Right.
administrative
the
power.
right to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that something that they'll be looking
my understanding that it's a very detailed, in-depth look into our code to make sure that everything is how we're doing it. You know, the ordinances all have been applied, recommendations for changes and cleaning up the code. So it is essentially, it is just a creation of a new code from our existing code.
Okay.
That's well worth it. I know that
Yeah.
I've been on if you go to the MTS website, they house our code, but it's not always up to date. I think you ran into that situation
Yeah,
where
well,
you've looked for
with the
something.
alcohol ordinance.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
We had changed
Yes.
it. and it wasn't
Where
on
is
there.
the most up-to-date copy? 'Cause,
3 years
yeah, we
later.
ran into that with that sign back when we were doing Zoom meetings on the. I found a copy on MTS that had that sign would be permitted by a different. And we didn't know which one.
I think that's a wonderful idea,
Yeah, I agree with it.
100%. Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I'd be comfortable with pushing this to the next meeting, so.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's, let's have this on our next
Yeah.
agenda.
Please.
Yes. Yeah, just a sample.
All right, the next item on the agenda is MTS department study.
Oh,
No. Yeah, yeah, it
Yes.
is.
okay. I met with Lana about, yeah. Sorry, manager review processes, because I was her point person and I'm gonna ask to put that on the next work session. But, I told her that, you know, we needed to pick new departments to start for this year, and I'm getting my phone because she texted me who's available when, for me to share with you all today.
Don't we have to finish the fire?
Well, that's the suggestion, is that we go ahead and we put the fire consultant on the agenda for August to present his findings. And he will be here with findings.
If we put him on the spot, you're saying he'll get it done.
Mhm.
I might be a little uncomfortable saying that out loud, but yeah, no. That was what, yeah, that's what we should do.
I'm all for that. It's been a long time.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So after fire is done, we need to pick our next.
We can pick the next ones now.
Okay.
Some of them are not available till the fall, but we can go ahead and get our name on the list for them. So here's what she has said. The police consultant does not have an opening to start the study until November at the earliest. Parks and Rec is also not available till towards the end of the year. And then building and codes, they do with the planner, and HANA, and they can start that next, but there'll be a little bit of time with that. Like, they can't start it this week. It will be more towards early fall. So basically what she said is just to give her the priority list of the remaining departments that we have. And if you guys want to discuss that, then you can reach out to her and tell her what our priority list is.
We didn't ever do an administrative or finance review, did we? I think only one we've had done is Public Works, right? The only one that's been completed.
I would love to see finance. Well, I don't know, because I think we're getting things settled. Yeah, I'm not sure that we need to do that yet.
Yeah.
Just because,
Not burdening with,
Yeah.
addition.
I think they're trying to clean up a lot right now, so maybe wait till, as a town, we clean that piece up and then let them look at it. Would that be your suggestion?
Yes.
Okay.
If buildings and codes is ready,
I mean, they're the ones that are
Yeah.
quickest, right?
Well, let me ask this though. We just talked about getting a cleaner set of codes. Timing wise, do you want, does it even relate to it? Do you have this?
I don't think it's
Okay.
okay. So, it sounds like after buildings and codes, police and parks and rec are kind of about the same. So we would have to pick which one to pick up after buildings and code to get on their list.
Yeah.
So, does anybody have a preference where we start?
I think Parks and Rec is less regulated than police, so it might be a good place to start. Just, does that make sense?
Those-
I was gonna say, I don't think Jared's here, but Chief Williams is here.
Mhm.
I don't know if one department is particularly busier than the other in November or December.
I may do Jared injustice here, and Elaine can try to correct me. Summer is usually their busier
Yes.
time of year, and therefore fall's bad too. But this is end of year, so you'd be out of leaf raking time. I think it might actually be perfect from his as ideal as possible.
So let's do Parks and Rec after Buildings and Code, and then Police, which may take them into spring for Police, maybe? I mean, depending on how quick they go.
Yeah, that's kind of my understanding, and then, I mean, I didn't really, she kind of did that rundown, and I didn't inquire about administration, because I know that there's a lot of changes and shifts happening right there with what we did, with the positions we added in our budget, and so I thought, I'm not sure if that would be something that we, maybe evaluating something that's not going to exist in that form in 6 months.
Yeah.
So I think it's best that we wait on that one anyways.
Okay. All right. Thanks for following up with her. I've been meaning to email her about the status of the fire review. So can we go ahead and tell her we're going to have it on an agenda? And which one?
Well, we're going to do the fire.
Fire, yeah.
Yeah, on, I think,
Next one?
August work session.
The next August work session.
Yes.
Okay.
Which
Yeah, 'cause this
is
was
August
July. So that would be,
22nd.
I think so.
Yes, August 22nd.
So I think we need to reach out to her and let her know that we're expecting that.
Do you want me to reach out to her?
Yes.
Okay.
Or, I mean, if you want me to, I don't have a problem reaching out to her.
I just don't want double.
Yeah.
Double
Well,
reaching
yeah,
out.
if you want to reach out to her on that and then our
Okay.
priority list on the department.
Perfect.
That would be perfect.
Okay. Next item is bonds discussion.
So as per our code, chapter 3, section 1-301-303, council minutes attached here for your review. Council members, town manager, and reporter must have a surety bond in the amount of $250,000. And then additionally, employees with duties embracing and handling disbursement and custody of money, they must have a surety bond in the amount of $100,000. This went into effect back in 2005, and to my knowledge, no employees in these positions have had these bonds.
Does council have any bonds?
No.
I spent a lot of time looking at this, trying to figure out, there's no state obligation. It only applies to counties for the most part. It's weird that municipalities aren't required to have bonds, or I guess maybe some employees are, but not council members. And then it got me wondering, are we covered by insurance? Yeah, so I just want to make sure. Because it seems like you wouldn't really need a bond and insurance. So I was curious if this in 2000, I mean, you don't know this, I don't suppose, but in 2005, if there was a state requirement for municipalities to have bonds, that has since gone away, that there's no longer a state requirement for municipalities to have bonds. This may have been enacted to come into compliance with state law that no longer exists. I don't know. I didn't look it up, but,
So, the only person that we have been able to find that has a bond is the town judge.
mhm.
And we went to that bond company to see if there had been any other bonds with them for employees, and they haven't.
Yeah,
So we reached out to our insurance, and they do not cover surety bonds for us. And so we're still in the process of digging, but I needed to bring that to your attention, that in accordance with our code, we were supposed to have these and we have not.
right, so we're not in compliance with our code,
No.
which we definitely need to be.
So we've, Kate has gone out and asked for several estimates, and there's just a breakout of what a total annual cost would look like based on some of the the one quote that we have received. And we have not allocated that amount of money for bond payments in the 22-23 budget.
So, thank you for catching this. We need to be in compliance. But I guess to Charlie's point, do we need this code is my question. Is it required? Or are we already covered in this instance by current insurance? I have some guesses, but I don't know for certain on those.
I don't know, but I would guess there might be an exclusion under the insurance policy for fraudulent acts or theft, which might be the reason for the bond, but that's a guess.
Well, the reality is, if we want to comply with our code, we have to do this now. If we want to change the code, we can, but that'll take time to really get to be in compliance, and it's a shame that we haven't been since 2005.
Are they cancelable within a year and you get a prorated amount back?
I don't believe so. No.
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, okay.
And the bonds are for a period of years, and if you do, for example, a 3-year bond, you get a bit of a discount.
Mm.
If you do a 1-year bond, you pay a different rate.
How much is the discount?
I think it was 15%.
15%.
For the 4-year bond.
And if
For 4 years.
is it the position or the person? So
It clearly states that it's the position.
okay, so if we have a position, if we have a change in position, a person, it would just go to that person.
No.
No.
Yeah, I guess we all will have to fill out our own
Yes.
specific information. We have to check our credit, each of us. So it is it's
Specific.
for the specific positions, but it's going to be
This
No.
one person.
processed for each
Mhm.
specific.
It's billed per position, but you have to go through a process to verify
Yes.
the individual every time.
But if one person quits and we hire somebody else, do we pay an entire another $675 a year or $360, or do we just let them fill out the paperwork and do the credit check and all that, and then they're doing their end? That's my question. I don't know.
Clarification, so I'm not sure.
We'll have to get that answer.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Because
Um,
that would make a difference in my mind between a 1-year and a 3-year
Yeah,
bond.
yeah. This seems like a pretty urgent
Yeah.
situation. So we would have to amend our budget to cover this, right? Since we didn't budget for this.
Yes.
Well, I'm not sure there's anything we can do except get more, I guess, try to get more quotes and find out about the transferability of a multi-year bond, and then, bring it back up and move
Okay.
forward. Anybody have any other thoughts?
Mm-mm. Thanks for catching it.
But if we want to,
by the
if we want
time
to
we
amend,
pass a resolution on this, you could, no.
but I also think it's important for us to find out if insurance covers us in the absence of a surety bond, and to be sure whether it's required under state law. I did not find any requirement for, well, I shouldn't say that. The comptroller's office can tell us. They have a list of who's required to have a bond, and municipalities aren't on it. It's county specific, but I should have printed it out. There may have been some positions that might have been like covered under a municipality. And then I found an MTAS, they just did a survey of some towns and whether they have, how they handle bonds. 8 towns responded, some require it, some don't. That's a few years old, but I think we need to make sure we know whether it's required, and if so, for which positions under state law. Because if we're going to try to change things, we need to be covered by insurance, and we need to know that we're allowed to do it. But that's not for today. Today we got to comply, and then, or as soon as we can, and then we can look into whether we can change this policy.
Yeah, and if they're not like most insurance policies where 3 months in we can cancel and get the rest of our premium back, we probably don't need to be going after the discounts at this point.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of my other concern, I'm not in November.
Well, I think,
And so, would you have to pay a whole year for me for the next 3 months?
I think they're saying you can pay by position, and then you just have to certify the new person under the same, or,
We'll just have to find out about.
Yeah.
Transferability, have to know.
but then I would also say, like, if it's not required, if this is, even if insurance doesn't cover fraud, with our current policies and procedures and how we operate, what is the risk that a council member steals money?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's always a risk.
How are we gonna get access to that? Like, I don't,
How are we going to get access to money?
yeah. We sign checks that are already prepared by staff.
I mean,
Um,
I'm not thinking in those ways.
Yeah,
But I did see a story on.
because what I'm saying is because we have, I bet the story you read didn't have policies and procedures and ways they operate like Jennifer and her team.
Well, it was just a,
I just don't see the opportunity.
If a council member directs a town employee, such as me or myself, to issue a check to such and such corporation for blah, 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 we do, and then the council member signs it.
Would you do that if I asked you to do it?
No.
I mean, no. But listen, the story.
It's not about me, it's the risk.
The story I saw was a person in Illinois who was embezzling money from a city, and it went on for years, and the city was falling apart around her, and she kept saying, "Oh, the state," blaming the state.
Was she staff or was she?
She was staff, but if you went to and you had a relationship with Jennifer that you guys were going to do something together, then you could create a situation where you can create a false thing.
But the staff
Jennifer can
member
wrait
who's bonded
checks
would
and you
be-
sign them and all that.
Would be complicit in it.
Right.
And would have violated procedure for the town to do that. Back when we had our old email system, I would get weekly emails from Charlie Poss asking me to send him $5,000. I'm not kidding.
Those
Back
were
on
real.
the old. Give me a call. Or only text me back because I'm in a meeting or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's there's a way. I mean, if you have two complicit parties in it, you can come up with a way to do it. So, but I think that that might be covered under an insurance policy. So we need to find that out before we were to do anything about changing our code.
So I think there's just questions to ask about like transferability and that sort of thing.
Yeah, these are questions to ask. We need to.
So,
Thank you for catching this. The next item on the agenda is MAC board suspension. And Ms. Green, I think that's not worded really that well. I don't think we had brought this up to, well, maybe, but I don't think the intention was to discuss suspending the MAC board, but we passed a resolution to look at it again in May, and I think we started that discussion and need to continue to see if we need to have the MAC board filled again and what their functions would be if we did. The MAC board is part of our charter. Code, sorry, chapter 10. So we would have, if we were going to change the way it operates, we'd have to amend the code. But I don't think at this point, if we're leasing the MAC to the preservation fund to operate a community center, I don't know that we need 7 members on a board to oversee what they're doing. So it's probably too big for that particular purpose.
So one thing, I think my approach to this would be to do like a 2-1004 on chapter 10 and say something like, under, or, you know, the Mountain Arts Education Center Board is disbanded, and while the lease of the MOA is in place with the preservation fund, and then we look at that MOA and we see what changes that needs to be there to offer. Because, I mean, to rewrite this whole thing to fit the circumstances we have for the next 4 years, and hopefully for longer than 4 years, or, you know, like this shouldn't be fluid.
I don't think we should disband the MAC board.
So what do you think it should be?
I think we should fill the MAC board to have, in a smaller capacity, to have some sort of role of oversight to make sure that the preservation fund is providing the services that the town wants to have provided, to make sure that, you know, just to kind of have some oversight over the MAC, this preservation fund operations, to make sure that it's filling the needs that we want. But I don't think we need 7 members of a board to do that. So you could, I mean, if you wanted to add another section, it could be in the event that the MAC is being leased to a third-party organization to operate the community center on behalf of the town, then here are the rules.
And so I guess, like, what would those duties be? Like, I know what you just said about, you know, like oversight and that sort of thing, which I thought was in our, I'm going to ask again, so if we could, MOA or MOA? I don't know why, I'm sorry. I'm already that agreement should be in the MOA about any type of, like what our expectations are in the programming that they're running. That should be in the MOA. It shouldn't be here in this function, I don't believe. Because, so let's just say that we have 3 people on a MAC board. And we sit here and we say, well, we want the preservation, or we want the MAC to be able to be used for something different than what they're doing now. But I can't think of something else. And then we ask the MAC board to go to them. They can say no. They don't have to say what we do because they're a private organization. And they have an MOA and a lease in place legally. Like that's what's binding them, not this board. So I think
The better mechanism might be using, if there's the need for control or a voice or whatever, to use the MOA, don't use this. And it's been a while but since we talked about this, but I'm still in that, where the research shows the most successful organizations that do this statewide, it's private body and giving them and I know we're not in that framework right now on the financial side, but giving them freedom to implement their vision, and that goes with financial freedom and responsibility, which there's significant progress this year on, as far as town expenditures that are going to be supporting the building and programs there, not directly the programs.
so. I mean, I can see where, like maybe in the MOA, in the MOA, there might need to be an agreed upon amendment that might say, something like, because I think one kind of responsibility that we have is to ensure that arts programs continue on the mountain. And a year and a half ago, the council decided that one way they could do that, or hoped to do that, would be to allow the preservation fund to run the programs. I think that it should be on the preservation fund's responsibility to kind of, I hate to use the word report back, but that's kind of like they do their quarterly financials. One of the problems there, I would like to see something in the MOA that does talk about like breaking down your financials to operational and they don't do capital improvements, but to the building improvements, like break it down that way, because that gives us the assurance that their programming is successful.
Right.
And it's not like, it's not an assurance because we want that power to have that, like they had to do assure us, but it is really important to us, I think, as a group, that we make sure arts programming happens for a very long time, long past the end of their lease. And possibly longer, like with a new lease with them, or whatever the future is. But I think I don't want it to sound like I don't think like that's happening now. But we just don't seem to have those assurances.
Well, and that's actually pretty standard in a lease. We rent space to run restaurants, and the landlord wants to know how many burgers we sold. So because in the future, at some point, they want to be able to tell the next guy coming in how many burgers we were able to sell in that space and advertise that. And that's about their longevity. Not that they think we're leaving. They want the data to be able to display and continue the ability for that space to be utilized optimally, right?
And I just think, like I said, our biggest responsibility, I feel, in this situation is to ensure arts programming on Signal Mountain for a very, very long time. I believe Preservation Fund has proven that that's who they are. And I kind of think like they've also proven that they're the ones to do it for a very long time. but we need to see the hard, fast evidence on a quarterly basis, and that should be in the MOU. I mean, I know it's written up there like we get financial reports, but their financial reports aren't easy. Like if I look at their financial reports, I don't see, okay, arts programming is doing fantastic, I don't need to, so they don't need support in another way right now, or maybe they do, or, like something like that. That would be my only thing of oversight. To Ms. Green's point, if they're following state law, there's nothing we can do. Correct me if I'm wrong. If they break state law,
We don't have to have it in writing that they have to comply with state law.
yeah. So I think like that.
Well, you talk about town building policy. Suppose the town, suppose COVID amps back up, and the town says from now on you have to wear a mask in all our buildings, and the MAC says, or the preservation fund says, no, we don't want masks in our buildings, so we're going to say no masks are allowed in our buildings.
Well, I think.
And I think that's the question is, it's a town building that's being leased to somebody, who sets the policy for how that?
We gave them the autonomy.
I think so. I think you're right. I think we don't have control over that town building while they're leasing it.
Isn't that what you found as far as legally when we looked at this, that really
Yeah,
we can't.
They had the authority to make that decision without council's approval or disapproval.
Right.
Yeah.
I just think we need to respect the autonomy of their private organization. Though we need to also protect arts programming for years, not necessarily protect, but we also need to be able to be in a position to support our arts programming for years
To ensure.
But at the same time, if they're not financially independent from us, we have a say in what's going on, or not a say, but we have some oversight to do. We need to be able to have some oversight, and whether that's directly with us every quarter, or whether it's through a board that we have in place.
And why couldn't, in the MOA, is there anything specified that way?
I don't think so, but I haven't looked at it in a little while. I don't recall there being anything.
I read it just a short bit ago when we had to redo it, like the lease and that stuff.
Yeah.
And I read it there, and I think if we're going to have any type of oversight, it has to be in the MOA, not in the code.
Right, but it's who's going to have that oversight? The town council or the board, the MAC board?
I think it's the town council, right?
It's the way it's laid out currently, yeah. I guess, is there a different way that you would feel is appropriate? In the past, a liaison's been mentioned. I know we can't specifically do a liaison, probably legally, but
Unless it's in the MOA.
Right, they'd have to agree to let us have somebody attend their meetings and, gather information. Because they're a private organization. I mean,
Yeah.
they don't have to let us
it
inside
wouldn't
their
even be a liaison because it's
meeting.
not that. Here's input from council. It would just be.
Now, if that were part of the MOA, right, that would be where that provision would be, correct?
Yeah, you could, by agreement,
Yes.
have it in the
Yeah.
MOA, correct?
Yeah, it's not in there now, but that's where it should be. Should we, decide to have a conversation and amend that
Yeah.
way.
If the parties agree to that, it should be in an MOA.
Okay. And so the two places where the preservation fund, we continue to pay the utilities on the MAC building, and that benefits the preservation fund's programming, which benefits our citizens and all of that, you know. So like, is there some type of, what type of oversight would you like on that? Like, what do you view as the needed oversight on like that expenditure?
I mean, that is having, I think we need to be able to access financial information to make sure that it's needed and it's going to the right purpose.
And so in the MOA, we have the clause in there that we get quarterly financials, just right now, it's not coming in a fantastically readable report, let's say.
It's impossible to distinguish between the programming side and the rehabilitation of the building side.
So, and I think, so I think like that's a conversation, not a piece of policy.
But the MAC board, I mean, the town operated the MAC as a community center, and we had a board that provided recommendations on programming to the town on what to do. So I'm not sure why we couldn't have a board that has some.
Well, so they already have a board,
but it's not our board.
No.
It's their
It's
board.
not ours, but it's composed mostly of town citizens and
But
people that are engaged.
that's a private
in it.
organization.
Yeah.
That's not our board.
So that's my question, Harry, if I can go back to you again. If we wanted to have that type of say in the programming that the preservation fund does, would that have to be written into the MOA? Because as of right now, it's my understanding that as a town council, we have zero say over their programming and their MOA and their lease giving them the autonomy to do what they want.
As far as programming.
But I think that it in the MOA, there's an understanding of what they're going to do. I mean, they're not leasing it to have parties.
No.
So I think there is an agreement that they're going to run it as a community center and provide arts and cultural
Absolutely.
programming.
But there's not that mechanism that gives us oversight on their, that gives us, the council, or the town, oversight on their programs. Like what this board does.
Right. If they decide, you know, what really is best for our bottom line is music. We're going to dispense with art. We're going to, visual art. We're going to dispense with everything else except we're just going to have music classes. That would fit within the MOA because it's arts programming.
But we do.
But it might not be what the town feels is appropriate overall for the town. But the preservation fund might say, this is best for us, and we're still providing arts programming.
But we have that oversight in the MOA.
Right. It's a matter of whether we have a board that oversees this or the town council oversees it and reports back to the board. That's really the difference between what you're saying and I'm saying. It's not about whether we have the ability to have some oversight. It's about who's going to do it, a board or us.
I don't know if we add an extra link into a line of communication that.
We already have a board. It's just not filled.
Yeah.
Right, and
Right,
and we're
adding it.
speaking in hypotheticals as well, you know, I don't envision that, anything like that to happen.
I don't either, but.
I think the council and the Signal Mountain Preservation Society have built a good relationship with each other in the last year, and so, and I do see it going, I see the vision they have, and I see them doing it. So I think that's great, but I do think that I do have questions, like with the financials, it's hard to read, and I do have questions about that, like quarterly, it's hard for me to see what's exactly going on. So maybe it would be good if we had somebody that could be a go-between between us and them, and that's something we don't have. Like right now, we don't have that. We don't have citizens that can say, and it's not oversight. I don't know that I like that word, but maybe collaboration or another word yeah.
Why do we need a citizen to do that? Why can't I go over there tomorrow and have a conversation with them and report back to you at the next meeting about what our concerns are about the financials? I mean, like.
Yeah. see.
I'm
I
not
think
sure
it's-
putting an extra link in there is the right way of doing it.
I was thinking more in terms of the meetings themselves that council people really shouldn't be at their meeting, legally, but having somebody that's agreed upon maybe to attend the meetings and bring that to us, or maybe that's not even something that they would want. I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking way up to, but I don't see why not that would work. Yeah.
Having somebody listen to their meetings and come to us. Because there's only so much we can do.
Yeah.
Because I go back to the MO and the lease where we gave them the autonomy.
Right. That's true. So.
I go back to kind of what are those best models, and where we differ are some of the pain points you're talking about. Maybe like, let's say that scenario happens not with this group but another group in the future. Well, I think a lot of the scenarios are not 5-year situations. It's a situation where there's that constant feedback loop of are we fulfilling the needs of the community with the programs, and then that next year that any private organization can form a group and say, this is our plan for this center, and here's the sort of expense and revenue situation we plan to have, and here's the type of programs we want to present. And so if somebody started just doing music, another organization is going to come in and say, we're going to do music and community activities and all the arts, and you know what, they're going to be better funded because of that too, because they'll have better participation. So then that council's, in those other cities are going to pick that nonprofit to run it. We've got these kind of muddy waters with a different term and a different, but I think we're again moving towards that direction of autonomy, financially autonomy, with implementing vision, and that's a healthy thing. And in 4 years now, when that comes up for bid, maybe the term changes a little bit, and maybe other groups have a better plan for how to use the space, use the asset for the citizens.
Okay, well, it's the memorandum of agreement isn't going to change for 4 years.
No.
Unless we reach out to the preservation fund and say, hey, these are some of the things we want to do differently if you're willing to negotiate a new lease and memorandum of agreement. And if they say, yeah, we're okay with that, then we can do that. But until then, we have an agreement in place for another 4 years. The real question is, we suspended the operation of the board, and we were supposed to review it in May. So now we're reviewing it, and what do we want to do with the board? Do we want to suspend it further? Because we have an agreement that doesn't really give the board any different kind of responsibility than the town council has? Or do we want a board that's going to take the role of working with the preservation fund and then reporting back to the town council? It's really a matter of whether the board does this or the town council does this. And if y'all are okay with the town council doing it, then let's suspend the board for another period of time and bring this up at that time. But if you'd rather have a board that works with the preservation fund on some of these issues to make sure things are going well, getting the quarterly reports and reporting back to us. You are right, it is in some ways creating a layer. It exists already, but it is creating another layer.
Can I suggest that we pass a resolution to keep it suspended without a date, and then we ask Elaine to put this on in 6 months, and let's see if the conversation about our concerns is met to move forward. It make a final decision about the matter. Because I think, like, what I'm hearing is, like, that you have some concerns in their ballot. You've also said that, I've said it. But I think we should have that conversation with the preservation fund. And whether I have it, or Elaine has it, or Andrew has it, one of us should have it. Have that discussion, see if there's an understanding where we can come together and see if, like, this would be needed, or you know, is the single line of communication between a council member and the preservation fund enough? I mean, I don't know what we would gain by having a citizen or a group of citizens attend their meeting if they have time.
Yeah.
You know, and then report back to us, Dick does.
Yeah, he tells us what's going on.
Yeah.
Sure,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think this is about building better relationships instead of putting extra pieces in place, at least for the next 6 months, I would say, or a year, or whatever. I realize I wanted the main language in there, and I'm now saying that I want it out. I will take that responsibility, just in case you're thinking that.
So, I don't think it's, I think it's building relationships either way. It just depends on who's building that relationship. Do we have a board that works with them more closely, or do we have the town council that works with them more closely? It's not about not having a relationship with the preservation fund.
No.
You guys you're fulfilling your role. You're putting on great programming and doing a great job to provide citizens with these arts and cultural opportunities. So we appreciate that. It's really about, this discussion is about whether we reinstate the board or not.
Yeah.
And that's a matter of who's going to work with the preservation fund folks. Is it going to be the town council or a board? And if I don't mind putting this off, it's fine with me. It has worked for the last few months. I mean, I think we were disappointed in the financial reporting, but that's a breakdown of our, that's a flaw of our memorandum of agreement to me.
So, if you guys are comfortable, I wouldn't mind being able to have that conversation.
Well, so what
about-
are those
about that
requests
concern.
and concerns? You mentioned the structure and
The
being able to
structure,
see it. Like in a prior meeting, I think Vicki had asked about an audit. Is that something that you still feel strongly about, or?
I don't feel as, yeah, I did. I talked about an audit when we were talking about it. We were talking on budget day. I talked about not having quite enough information, but I think that we do. I think we're talking about the same thing. I think we need to ask them for what we want, and I think they're going to be willing to help us with that. That's what I think, because we do have a good relationship. So if we want the financials to be organized differently so that we can see, you know, what is what, and what's, you know, operational, and what is arts, and where the money's going in those two buckets, and who's doing what, and what responsibilities the town has. I think it was where.
So the structure would satisfy
the structure
your
yes,
concern.
just knowing exactly what's what, and how, you know, is who's responsible for what, like, and looking at it for that in that capacity.
Okay.
So I think I was concerned about, we were having reports of the town doing things, and then there was understanding that they were doing it, and I'm still not quite sure who's doing what.
Okay.
As far as maintenance and upkeep and that kind of stuff. And I think it's the town, and I think I'm pretty sure it's us, but I'm not 100% sure. But no, I'm satisfied.
But
Operational organization, responsibilities. I mean, are you guys okay?
we're kind of talking about a liaison to some extent here, but
Oh, well, do you want a board to do this?
well, no.
I don't want to step on
We're in the weeds.
I'm happy for Elizabeth
Yeah.
to talk about concerns. And I'm happy with your original suggestion of 2-104. You know, as long as the police and MOA are in effect, we don't. I think we're just I agree. We're just adding another layer here. That's going to be. It's like a game of telephone. It's just the message is clearest communication is going to be the best and most direct and straightforward. And that's probably just one of us at this point. And you know, I will say this too about the lease and MOA is we can. I don't think we should do this, but let's say the other scenario of music or whatever. Yeah, okay, we're only doing music. Get out of here, painting portraits or whatever. I believe we can get out 30 days notice at any point for any reason council deems necessary. So I think that's right. But I may be remembering that.
I remember there was a clause for either party to cancel the contract.
There's no better way to say it than
Yeah. That's,
Okay, well, I think, are you okay with Elizabeth being the point person, not the liaison, I guess?
That's great.
Call her that, but to meet with the Preservation Fund, express some concerns we had, and then we can, I'm fine putting this off for 6 months.
Okay, so then we would just do a resolution like this one, but without the date. The next meeting.
Yeah, but it might be good to have a date, so we know it's coming back.
Yeah.
If I didn't push to have a date, then we wouldn't be having this conversation today. So is it a good thing? I don't know.
Oh.
No, I mean, if you want a date in there, it doesn't matter if you want a 6 month date.
Well, that way we know we'll address it again.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, kicking the can down the road for another 6 months and have the discussion again.
I just want to say it's easy as we're discussing these like nuances to. And Charlie said it and did a good job, and y'all did, but I don't think I did the excellent work that they're doing. Any of y'all that haven't been over there, it's really fantastic to see. Every time I go, something new at the building that's been redone and a new program. So very, very cool. And I get the emails as well about new programs.
Yep. All right. Next item on the agenda is committee needs. Oh, there it is. Oh, yeah, this is a good thing to bring up as far as filling the open positions.
Yes, so due to COVID, there's been just really a breakdown in communication with the committees, with the town manager. And Katie's done a fantastic job in scrubbing the roster. She's reformatted it, made it so much more user-friendly. And we've been able to identify several positions that are open that require filling. And as listed here, the Municipal Planning Commission, we have 1 member that we need. Parks Board, we need a member. The Recreation Board, we need 2 members. And Stormwater Appeals Board, we need 2 members. Also, in trying to improve that communication with our boards and committees, we just have a clear line of communication. And what does that look like? Reminders that minutes need to be submitted, agendas need to be submitted, and that way we can post the things on our Facebook page and in town email blast. But just trying to solidify that communication process as we're uncovering from COVID for 2+ years.
Yeah. All right.
I love that there's going to be like standard communication.
Yeah.
The citizens who have been volunteering with us.
Can I bring up a question? It was brought up, I think, probably over a year ago, but
I guess email, contact information is not something that we share even for the chair of the board on like our webpage. I think it was decided no in the past. I don't know
So years
how I
ago,
feel
it was
about
on the
that.
website. Years ago, there was, the committees were listed and then names and like an email address or maybe all of their email addresses. I mean, that was years, like more than 9 years ago,
Mhm.
say. And then over like maybe the past 5 bit of time, they were removed. And even their names were removed, which meant that when citizens had a question for a board member, they had nobody to contact. And then if they wanted to know who was on the board, they would have to fill out an open record request. And so that didn't go real well. But I do like the idea of listing our board members, if they're open for it, their first and last name.
yeah, or maybe even just the option of like, hey, okay, we're going to list everybody's name, and then do you want to provide contact information? If you
Yeah.
don't, totally cool. But yeah, I think actually a lot of our board members, particularly our Parks Board, would be happy to.
Answer some
They wanna
questions.
engage. And,
Yeah.
So are we specifically talking about that information you put on the website?
Yes.
Okay, because that also transferred over to removing it from our board list that we had here at Town Hall. So Katie's done a fantastic job reaching out to each one of the board members to get email addresses and phone numbers, because we didn't even have those. It was just like removed from all records.
Okay.
So, and we'll reach out to the board members and ask them specifically if they're okay with having their email information put out on their website or just their name in particular, so
That's
they
great.
they can ask questions. But we here at Town Hall, we need to have that information, and it
Yes.
has disappeared.
Yeah.
I do think it would be a good idea to encourage the chairmen and women chairpersons
The chairperson.
to have their email address up there.
Yeah.
And I assume that we have the staff member associated with the board on the website where the board information
Yes.
is, so that, and their email address,
Yes.
so they can contact them through that. Okay. All right, well, thank you for taking on this task and making the changes. Thanks, Katie, for getting on that as well. The next item is the tractor updates for Public Works. We have a memorandum from Loretta.
Yes. And Loretta will-
Couldn't have gone down in price, could it? Not in this day and age.
That's not the problem.
Yeah.
More talk on the tractor. I thought we were ready to move forward with this. We called the vendor, getting everything in order with the contract numbers, and then they realized they gave us the wrong quote. Not for the tractor, but for the mowing arm. They gave us a quote for a different mower, more of a deck mower, and we have a boom mower. And now that cost is $169, $495 and 43 cents. So $25,000 more than what they quoted us. So that's why we thought we should bring it here for discussion. Because we still want the mower, but it's significantly more expensive than we anticipated.
So we have this quote. Can you bring that over to the contract?
No, that's what we were preparing to do, is move forward with the contract and move forward with the purchase. And that's when they came back to us and said, we quoted you the wrong number.
And it was their mistake.
It was their mistake.
Can they meet us in the middle? It happened now.
They just basically gave us the price for a different type of mower. Like I said, it's like a deck mower rather than the boom. That's what we were going back with the contract numbers, and they realized it was the wrong one. well, it's still on state bid, but it was just the wrong one. So, we still think we could get $25,000 to $30,000, you know, for the old one, the old tractor, because the tractor part's in decent shape, and we were about to spend over almost $14,000 on repairs just to get the old one up and running. Like I said, in the meantime, we have been able to borrow a mower from the county, and that's been working out okay. It's not the best, but it's working. Doesn't have a cab, it has a little fan. So that's getting a little hot these days to mow. But we're getting some mowing done and some trimming. So that was the main thing, is our trimming that we do with that. So.
Do we need to, I don't know how these quotes work with, when you go through or wherever it is.
State bid.
Do you have to, did it get rebid?
No,
Or
what
just gave us
happens
a different
on the state
quote?
bid, certain companies go through a bidding process and a vetting process and get put on the state bid. It's like several companies can put in their bid, and whoever wins that has the state bid. And we can go on that site and use that price and use that without having to go out to bid
I
ourselves.
see, okay.
It's already a negotiated, bidded
Price.
price.
Right.
They just spec'd it wrong to start with.
Well, they just quoted us the wrong one, so unfortunately.
Lauren, could you remind me again when this tractor was up for replacement?
It was up in, we had it up for, in 3 years, and I was trying to move it back to this fiscal year that we're in now when it broke. So I had written a email back in January to the interim town manager then, stating that we really need to move this tractor up. I don't think it's gonna make it 3 more years, and we wanted to replace it in this fiscal year.
So what I know about the used tractor market is not as much, so excuse my questions, but you're talking that the tractor's in pretty decent shape and you should be able to get a decent amount of money from it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not in good enough. I understand like why we're doing this because of the new market and everything like that.
Right.
But now that price has gone up.
Yes. Well, yeah. Yes, from what we were originally quoted.
Exactly.
And we can't use the tractor now because the arm is completely broken off. So we can't use the tractor.
So we don't use the tractor for anything else but this money?
Yes.
Okay.
And the new arm, and if I remember correctly, it would be as expensive to just replace the arm and put it on the tractor as it would be for a new one. Is that still the case?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The arm, when you talk about the tractor and the mower, it's about a 60-40. 60% on the arm and 40% is the tractor. That's the way that put together. That's the way it falls out.
Okay. So it wouldn't help us
No.
again.
And trying to fix the tractor again was right at 14,000. Trying to fix it.
So we'll have to get like a budget amendment? Find the money? What do we do?
It's 25,000 more than I anticipated it to be. So, yes.
We need
Yeah.
another resolution for contract.
And we never did the resolution.
No.
This was, I was preparing that to bring to you guys, and that's when they told us, they gave us the wrong quote.
Will we need a budget amendment?
It's going to come out of
Vehicle?
What is vehicle replacement?
It's just more than.
It's more than what we
have.
have.
Remember, this was in this year's budget this way. Because it was all at the same time.
It was,
I mean,
whatever it needs, I'm in support of it.
yeah, I agree.
And we have plenty of time, since we will need it in the spring. It's going to take 6 to 8 months to get it.
Yeah.
So, we're looking good as far as that time frame goes, now that we have borrowed a tractor to just get us by. And TDOT, I believe, has been up here once and mowed up on the highway for us so far. But their contractor's gonna, when they circulate through this area, they'll come and do the highway for us. So we're getting by.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is the Walden Ridge Utility District interconnect rates for new agreement. Welcome.
Good evening.
Hello.
I saw these prices. You can start us off.
Okay. So I emailed everyone last week just a summary of the pricing estimate that we had gotten. Try to get everyone a fairly ballpark figure on this so that we could kind of look at how we want to handle this going forward and how much we want to commit to the project. I hope everyone had a chance to review those numbers, go over those and have been formulating a plan in your heads.
Yeah.
Yeah? Good. Today I would love to walk out of here with at least some sort of plan or idea of the willingness that we want to spend on this. So if
Did you
anybody
get
wants to share.
any movement from the other side?
Yeah, and that was kind of what my idea was. So Walden is willing to go in on their pump station. Here's where always kind of been my hang up, and I think Matt might share some of my concern. We're putting a lot of money into somebody else's pump station. Walden has prioritized some funds for this, to go towards that pump station. I don't think Signal Mountain should do anything more than what Walden's doing on it, which is $60,000. And then WRUD can make up that difference. Now, keeping in mind that WRUD, like the initial proposal, is going to provide labor.
And Elizabeth, I've reached out to some contractor buddies just to get kind of a figure up to date. And I got somewhere between $20 a linear foot to $35 if it's excessive rock. So if we kind of use those numbers, I think the figure I shared with you earlier was more a line of labor plus pipe. So at 2,000 feet, if you figured on the high side at $35 a square foot, you're looking at $70,000.
Okay, so Matt and I had this discussion earlier today about how much labor would go. I'm not going to estimate that. But so I think if we meet Walden financially on the pump station, and the rest of that is WRUD's responsibility. But knowing that they're going to be putting in, initially we had looked at about 100. So initially when we were looking at that $500,000, we were going to have a 40% match, and then we were going to split that 40%. Well, now with the new rules and the new doing the non-competitive grant with the partnership, we'll be at a 30% match. And so even at that 30% match, which would be $167,000, Walden had said that they would split that 50-50 with us. I proposed that we just cover our part of the match of $167,000. Then we go ahead and let them cover the expense of their pump station. which will be a savings of about $250,000 to the town, approximately. Did I get my math right?
Yeah,
Okay.
And that will work?
Well, we don't know if that would work, but
That would be
well,
good
it's
if
what
it.
we can take to them.
Mhm.
That's with
We can-
us contributing 60 to the pump station or 0?
that's pretty, go to 60,
Yeah.
you know. Again, because you're looking at, they're covering all of the labor costs.
Right.
Which is about equal to the value.
Yeah, about what we're putting towards the pump station,
Yeah.
$60,000 to $70,000.
Yeah, I mean, I think like that's, in my opinion, that's where I'm really super comfortable. I don't know what you all think, but I think if we can all kind of decide on maybe a range of comfort, then Matt can go and do his job and negotiate it.
One thing we had talked about at that meeting was having a review of the contract to make sure that we're not going to run into any issues.
Yeah.
And I did review our contract, and there is no, it specifically says in there we can do this. So there's no problem on our end.
So we just want to confirm that they've done that on their end, we're going into an agreement. But I think that we have to agree on numbers before we can go into an agreement.
Yeah.
My range of comfort is that you could make an argument that we shouldn't pay a dime for the pump station.
Yeah.
That would be the one end. And I like your proposal. I mean, I think that's a good win-win compromise.
It's fair.
It's fair.
I mean,
It didn't feel fair to me before, you know, so.
and it also allows us to free up some more of that TDEC money to do other projects, which to me is the most important thing. I mean, if we can get this project done and another project, maybe like our own pump station, fixed up.
That was my hang up, is I've expressed the need for repairs at our own pump station, and did not want my customers to be fitting the bill for Walden Ridge pump stations when we need to address our own issues first. So I believe what we've kind of are kicking around here would allow for both, so we can address our needs as well as the needs of the interconnect, because we all know how important it is.
Yeah.
And you know, make our agreement fair to both sides so that it does happen.
Yeah. Because I mean, if we're able to, so that $559,000, that initial amount is going to come from our TDEC money. And if we can eliminate $250,000 out of that, that's going to free up enough that hopefully we can do the pump station, well, not replace the pump station, but
We can at least, we can do the needed, we can do the pump upgrade with the needed materials for that. That's pump, motor, variable speed drive. We're looking at a estimate of between 300 to 400,000 on that project. It was 300 last year. It's creeping up towards 400 the more time goes by, and that's a project that is virtually ready to go for grant application. It's put together well enough that we're right there. We can get this thing applied for and push it through during the non-competitive period. So I'd really like to move on that as soon as possible. But I need to make sure that it doesn't stop this interconnect project.
Yeah. And that's something I want to say is Matt's worked really hard on getting to the point where we've got these projects ready to go into the non-competitive grant cycle, which is next month. Couple of days.
Yeah, so I believe deadline's November 1st, I believe. So we are, we're in the fourth quarter and the clock's ticking.
Yeah.
We've got to make some movement on this. There's always the competitive portion, but I'd love to get this pushed through prior to getting to that point, if we can avoid it.
So giving you the go-ahead to do that, to present it, the 60
Yes, so if
would
we
be a start.
Yeah, if we can settle up on that, then I can take that to WRUD, and you know, if we can agree upon something, get an agreement in writing that I can then present to our water board for authorization.
Good. I'm all in with that one. That's great.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah, thank you for all the work to prepare us to be ready for these grants. And thank you to Elizabeth for doing a lot of the legwork to get us there as well, and bridging some previously unbridgeable gaps.
It's a pleasure. I'm really excited to see this stuff actually moving forward.
Me too. Me too. So.
All right. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to stay up here because I think the next topic may have something to do with me as well. So.
Yeah. So, well, I've lost my agenda now. Again, there it is. So the next topic is WWTA rates. Yeah, I was. What was the conversation with them? Because I will note that it says mutually agreed, and Mitch had written something saying we're going to raise our rates in January. And I don't know when we heard back from them, but I don't know that we had a mutual agreement by June 1st.
We definitely did not have a mutual agreement. Mitch made his proposal. It was rejected by WWTA. Their counter was rejected by Mitch, and it was left as stood. I reached out to WWTA and asked if they had a copy of an actual agreement aside from the original wastewater treatment facilities management agreement from 2002. Apparently there's nothing that exists in writing on our mutual agreement for fees. It has been, I would assume, a verbal agreement between the two parties. So I think that's first step is to get something definitive in writing that we can refer to.
Well, I don't remember how much we were charging before Mitch wrote this.
So we have roughly 1,200 customers on sewer. We are charging $1 per customer for the billing. That's a monthly fee. What their proposal that they came back with was that they would, and I will say this, that I believe that $1 is roughly in line with others. It may be more expensive than what their own third-party billing is doing, which is why WWTA was eager to just say they'll take over the billing themselves. They will purchase the data from us at this is kind of that game of library you referred to earlier. I'm getting this word of mouth. So it was at 2 cents per customer, which what is that, $24 a month, versus we're charging $1 for that right now, so roughly $1,200 a month. So that was their counter offer, was that if we wanted to go up, they would just do it themselves, and that was the rate they would pay us, is 2 cents per customer.
Can I ask you, what type of time is involved in billing for our staff members, for billing for WWTA?
So Gail, my water clerk, does handle gathering that data, and so we have started on kind of doing a great study on that as we look at our fees that we're charging and gathering her information. Along with that, our finance department is actually calculating this fee and making the payment for the money that we collect. You guys are signing off on those checks typically, so those are the large checks you see going out. So it is consuming a good portion of time. I don't have an exact figure, down to dollars and cents.
So, if I'm recalling prior conversations with Mitch about it correctly, the direction was we kind of, unless we can charge something close to that, and I don't think there was a lot of time to put math together on it, then we want them to do it, but we want them to pay us for our.
What is the downside of them doing it?
Am I remembering that incorrectly? First of all,
so I'm not sure on
Yeah.
those conversations because Mitch was gone.
That's right. Yeah.
Mitch wasn't here. I wasn't part of those conversations, but in looking at it and studying it myself, I'm not sure that it wouldn't be a bad, idea to let them take that. I will say what a lot of the folks make their money off of is the fees involved with turn off and turn ons, because WWTA would need us to turn people's water off if they didn't pay their sewer bill. So they could be fully paid up on water, not have paid their sewer bill. WWTA would expect us to go out and turn their water off until that sewer bill was paid. We can charge a fee for that. I believe what the current rate is somewhere around $15. And that's great when you're down in Chattanooga and you've got, 300,000 customers on sewer. You can really, those fees really cover the time that's put into it. For us, we just don't have many turnoffs, period. Folks pay their bills. So we're not looking at, a lot of time spent on turnoffs, nor are we going to collect on turn-off service orders.
Two things. If somebody needs their water turned off, because they haven't paid their sewer bill, the water department still has to be the one to turn it off, no matter who does it.
Yep. No matter who
So
does it.
okay. And then two, if they do their own billing, they need to purchase our data, and they suggested at 1 cent?
2 cents.
2 cents? How long would it take one of our staff members to compile that data and put it in the format that you need it?
In my opinion, more than 2 cents worth of time.
So I think regardless of which way we go, and I think it's more of an operational decision, because I don't know which ways. Maybe it's not, I don't know. But I think no matter what, it has to be.
Yeah.
Well, the 2 cents was unacceptable, and the 40 or
Yeah.
and the current rate was
That's
unacceptable.
going to cover the time that we're spending on WWTA business. That's what it has to be, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into the WWTA billing portion of it that is not included in this, and that's in the adjustments. When there's an adjustment needed for the sewer side, we have to go back and get 12 months worth of data together and send that to WWTA so that they can figure out what their adjustment's going to look like for that customer. Then once they come up with that, we have to go back and change our billing. So aside from just the normal day-to-day, monthly, this is how much water is used, so your sewer is going to be X amount of dollars. I think where the most time is consumed is in doing those adjustments, those bill adjustments.
And so those bill adjustments,
If they did this themselves, we would no longer have to do the bill adjustments?
They're still going to, if they have that data themselves, then they should not be relying on us to provide 12 months worth. If they're getting those, if they're purchasing the readings from us, then they should have those readings in their, in their data.
so do you have a preference that you would like to see the town have?
I've been thinking about it a lot. I don't think that I would be heartbroken to see that taken off of our bills. Just for one thing, it's such a high bill, and when people see their water bills, you know, you've got that sewer rate, which is substantially higher than the water rate, but they bundle them together and they say my water bill's outrageous. You know, I'm paying $70 a month. Well, you're only paying $25, you know, or $30 of that towards water. So I wouldn't be brokenhearted to do away with that if we can't come to an agreement on a better rate for us.
What, and I would add to that, like from the perspective of either our water system or the town, it is a small fraction. It is not a majority. It's on sewer, and that, if you think about where that responsibility kind of should belong from an economies of scale or whatever perspective, it should belong with WWTA, not with us. It doesn't kind of make sense to me that it is here. One other question I have: are we sending a bill for $4,500? Because it's July.
No, they rejected that. But
So if
We
they,
should still send a bill.
we don't have an agreement. I mean, we never really reached an agreement, a mutual agreement.
I believe that was the direction that Mitch had given us. It's, if it gets July and they haven't given you a better solution, you send them a bill. But I'll leave
So
that to Harry, maybe.
So the way we build this is basically we deduct our amount from the amount that we deduct our service fee from the amount that we send to them. So if we collect, you know, $30,000, we would deduct our, you know, $1,200.
So we actually have complete control of the funds as well. That, yes, I remember that now.
Yeah.
So you don't even really have to bill. You send a bill, but you could just deduct $4,500, and that was Mitch's direction. Now that's playing hardball.
Playing hardball.
Well,
Yeah.
again, it says that it has to be mutually agreed on, and it hasn't been mutually agreed on, whether it's $4,500 or whatever. But June 1st is
Which was
gone.
which is my
Yeah.
first action item was to get a mutually agreed solution, whether that be
Well,
$1.25.
I guess the first question is, are we billing it in July?
Yeah, I signed a check.
So we are billing. Yeah, we are collecting
Oh, that was June.
our current fees. Yes, and that was last one was June, I believe.
And we're doing it at $1.
We're doing it at the previous rate of $1.
So do you need some type of consensus for us to negotiate what we need to have done here? Or do you need direction from us to say what those
I would love your input, but I don't have to have. I mean, I can fully go in and attempt to negotiate the best rate. And that's something Elaine and I can work together to do.
I mean, I would just like it, whichever way you go, just make sure that it's actually covering the cost or the
Right.
expense of the staff doing the work for them. It's not going to be okay that our taxpayers are supplementing WWTA's.
And I don't think we're losing money.
expenses.
Yeah, I don't think we're losing
Okay.
money at this.
Okay.
it would just, but it would free up time for
It
them
would
to do
free up
something
time.
else.
We're very lean. We would have a better, more customer friendly water department. We all know the structure has, you know, one water clerk. So any time that we can free up for her to commit to water utility and our water utility customers, I'm all for.
So if we let them bill us, so the town residents would just get 2 bills, like it
Yes.
would be, so we'd have to kind of do PR for that one.
Well, but
But-
Vicki, it's a fraction of.
That's true.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, only.
A very
I can't
few
remember the
number.
number, but yeah,
Yeah.
we don't have a lot on. sewer.
1,200.
1,200. Yep, 199 customers, I believe.
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry, 1,199.
And, I mean, like, we'll certainly get knowledge out there, but It's their business. Right?
Well, I mean, it's really, Vicky's right. I mean,
Yeah.
if I'm getting 2 bills now instead of 1, I'm gonna wonder what's going on, whether WWTA is supposed to explain it to me or our water department is. Somebody's got to
Yeah.
explain it.
Somebody's got to tell everybody, because
Yeah.
it'll blow up.
we'll
Elaine's
need to
be very
Yeah.
busy.
Communicate as
Yeah.
well, but
Yeah.
I think first action is to, gather data on how much time and get a monetary number on what we're actually spending so that we can negotiate, our fees accordingly. I'll also reach out and try to gather data on what other similar utilities are collecting. And then we can attempt to get, a decision made on the direction we want to go, whether that's to let them bill it or to negotiate best rate.
All right, I have a question for you.
Mhm.
So, where did we leave off June 1st? I mean, it says we have to have a mutual agreement. We wrote to them and said it's gonna be $4,500. They said, no, we're not paying you $4,500. So where do we stand? And what are we gonna do with our July bill?
If we continued under the rate that we previously had, I mean, that's, typical practice for a contract. If nothing is, agreed on, nothing new is agreed on, you maintain, the existing contract. So that's what I've done there.
Okay.
Again, I reached out. There's nothing in writing on that. So
You're certain of that? Because I feel like it was.
I reached out to the office today and the reply was, there is no other agreement other than the original wastewater treatment facilities management agreement from 2002. That's what she's referring to as the other agreement. There's no other agreement that exists. I have included our executive director, Michael Patrick. Michael Patrick is who Mitch was in discussions with.
Okay. So the agreement you have is a
The agreement that I have simply states that an agreement will be a mutual agreement will be in place. It shows no monetary amount.
So you don't know how long the dollar has been the agreement?
I do not.
Okay.
No. From what I understand, that has been the way, and it somewhat complicates that we used to do quarterly billing. So I believe we went from quarterly charging $1 to monthly charging $1, because we only billed quarterly at that time. So the practice just continued.
And Harry, is that your reading of the contract that
I haven't seen it.
we don't? Okay.
If it's,
It's
we have a
the
course of
same
dealing.
one that Mitch was. I don't know if you reviewed it back then. Okay.
We may be stuck at $1 just based on course of dealing, but that doesn't, we don't have a mutual agreement in place.
I mean, from a negotiation standpoint, we hold all the cards because we hold the
Possession is
funds.
9/10 of the law.
So,
Well, I do think that the fee that they're being charged by their third party is less than what we are charging them currently.
okay, but I think that Mitch's feeling on it, I don't know if there was a lot of math behind it, was that it wasn't appropriate for our burden and our cost.
Yeah.
And maybe it shouldn't really, I don't know, I can't remember if he felt like it just shouldn't be here, shouldn't be built here.
I don't know his opinion about that, but I think you can formulate your own opinion. And that's the decision, to let them do it or us keep on doing it. But you and Elaine will have to work together to figure out if we're gonna keep it, what we wanna propose charging them. And it may be, having to amend the contract, since it appears to be, we're at the dollar figure until next June. Since we never reached an agreement.
Well, I would push for the
I
agreement to take
would say
place
you could
effective
start charging them
immediately.
what you think you should today and take it out of their funds and let them come to you with the proposal, but.
You can do that. I mean, yeah. All right, but you guys can give our blessing to move forward and negotiate with them.
We'll definitely keep the water board informed on the process and any progress that we make in, either direction.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, well, that's the last item on the agenda. We have the manager's report.
So in accordance with our town charter, I've designated acting town manager, and that's Public Works Director Loretta Hopper. And she will act in my stead if I am temporarily absent or not able to act as town manager.
Okay.
And I designated her in writing and notified the town recorder in accordance with our charter. The retention bonuses and merit raises have been processed. The retention bonuses went out Friday with payroll, and merit raises are being processed for implementation for this pay period. New finance clerk will start August 15th, so we're pretty excited about that. She's coming from a background similar to what the job duties are of finance clerk here, and she's also worked in municipalities. So I think she'll be ready to hit the deck plates running, so to speak. Just a reminder, we do have our training tomorrow for open meetings and records retention over at Firehouse 2. You're more than welcome to attend. It starts at 1 o'clock and it's scheduled to go for an hour and a half, and that's going to be presented by the Tennessee Comptroller's Office. And in that, we're going to be shutting down Town Hall, closing at 12:30 in preparation for the training, and then we'll be coming back and applying what we've just learned from the training. So I've been working on the IT specialist job description, just about done and ready to launch by the end of the week. And I've reached out to Chattanooga IT department and asked for their assistance in doing the interview process, since they have the experience on staff. Also, we have a website demonstration tomorrow, directly following our department head meeting. So I'll have all the department heads available, and we'll have a demonstration from a company that gets high accolades from other town governments. And I've spoken with them about their accessibility and process with some of the website developers. And this one company, we have a demo tomorrow. They are highly recommended. And then also, lastly, MTAS, I do have them currently working on the pay study review.
Did they give you a time frame when? And then it may take a while, but just any idea?
No, I don't have a time frame for completion. However, I did give the priority that was number one to be accomplished. In the grand scheme of all the things that we need to get done, that was prioritized number one.
Okay. Excellent. Okay. Is that it?
That's it.
All right, great. Thank you. Do we have other business?
Hey, she put the, by the way, does anybody see the big crosswalk signs? I mean, is anybody gonna talk about that? 'Cause
I haven't seen
I've
that.
gotten 3 phone calls today.
Where are they?
Saying, was there always a crosswalk there? Anyways, I just wanted to mention, go up to Fruits after the community, go along with it.
Yeah.
But they look fantastic. When I was driving, I was thinking, man, what a difference something small like that makes. And I'm positive it wasn't small to install it, or small to get everything together, and small all that. But it's just, they look great. It really draws attention to the 2 crosswalks out here on Taft Highway between Town Hall and Pruitt's. It's fantastic. There's blinker lights that are solar powered. It's really amazing. I can't believe nobody talked about it till today, but I'm so excited I got to be the one. And then also on August work session, if we could have on air town manager review process. I met with Wanda last week, and I will have something ready for you guys
Okay.
at the end of August.
I have one thing. We had a library board meeting last week, and it's really exciting. We had 127 new people join just in June. So there's lots of folks coming out. Another thing we've done is we did the bylaws, and they've been edited, and we've proposed them and read them. So the next step is a 5-year strategic plan. So I'm really excited about that. So, yeah.
All right, thank you. Any other reports from committees and boards? Are you reviewing notes for a report?
Yes.
Okay. We'll be doing
Rec board met for the first time in a while. One thing that was discussed that's probably worth us thinking about in the future is providing tools, and I think this goes, we can reassess fees and potentially find out that out-of-town fees should be X amount higher. But tools, we are going to need to maybe work in conjunction with leagues to provide them tools to enable them to, really actually collect and track that correctly. Because if you raise the fee, you may just get less compliance and less revenue. Because right now the arrangement's pretty much voluntary. And then another thing that came up that was frustrating to hear is I heard from several rec directors about this time last year that there was a new arrangement with Coca-Cola where they were going to start replacing our scoreboards for free with LED scoreboards, and then the leagues, all they had to do was purchase their Coca-Cola products through a number, which required some pre-planning, and I guess none of them did that. So we are not getting any scoreboards. They've been sent elsewhere.
Wow.
So we need to, I love our leagues, they do awesome work, but they need to be compliant with what Jared asked them to do.
Yeah.
Because it's a win-win. So I'm not sure if we can be of assistance in that as far as passing something. We didn't discuss specifics about that other than the board having more active pre-season meetings with whoever's the head of whatever league, and then a postseason kind of wrap up where they're actually coming in, presenting, and then the board is saying, well, here's how it's going to be. You're going to call the 1-800 number and get your Coca-Cola products through there.
I mean, could that be something that that Jared could require or charge the board?
Yeah, that would be like, I don't know if it's my feeling is like we could use some more formalized agreements as far as the usage of the field. Okay, so you have right of first refusal for this season on these ball fields. And here's what you're going to remit to us in payment for out of town and this and that. And then, as part of your lease agreement, you are required to call the 1-800 number so that you can have a new scoreboard.
Right.
And it's that arrangement that most towns take advantage of that we're not able to currently. So,
Just for this year or forever?
we haven't taken advantage of this. I don't know if you've seen our scoreboards in, I think, a decade or more. Because we're not compliant with the requests. And then that bridge was kind of rebuilt through some efforts from some citizens in Jared. And then they have the ability to track. That's why they want you to call the number, what this town is putting back, through Coca-Cola. So
I got it.
So, the town doesn't purchase the items from concession.
No, this is their fundraising purposes, really. And yeah, it might cost a little more than going to Costco, but in my opinion, it's a simple requirement.
Well, and if they don't meet the requirement, then they don't sell advertising on our fence. I mean, simple enough. I mean, right?
Yeah,
And we pay for our maintenance on the facilities as well.
Yes.
All of them have maintenance on the
And
facilities.
they haven't been regular with paying for their field, with the field fees or the out of town, or the out of resident fees.
No.
I mean, I would really, I know we're gonna discuss that in November, so I won't get into it, but I would really like just to see a streamlined, setup for fees when it comes to leagues. Like, it's not the town's job to collect on resident or non-resident or whatever. We know how much it costs for us to maintain those fields. They need to pay whatever portion that is decided upon, and then they can determine how they're going to pay for that, whether they're going to charge non-resident fees or not.
And one of the items that was mentioned, kind of, and we didn't know whether this would end up being part of a fee study from MTAS, is maybe the structure needs to change from this almost voluntary, this is what we want you to charge per family, per out-of-town family, to this is what we are charging you for the fields this season.
Yeah.
And like you figure out how to cover.
yeah.
I
your
like
costs.
that idea. It's easier for
That's
us.
And
Yeah.
then you don't have the compliance issue, and you're doing it more as a lease agreement of this is what you're paying, and here are the requirements also of you leasing, which would include, purchasing the way that's appropriate to get free scoreboards.
Yeah. All right. So that's something we're talking about in November, that Elizabeth mentioned.
But I will say this, I think a lot of those organizations, as I found out, are less organized than I would feel comfortable being somebody running them. They are not 501c3s, which is, so how do you do an agreement with this nebulous funding organization?
Well, you just tell them what their fee, you bill them their fee, and you pay.
Yeah, but I think he's saying, who do you bill?
Who's the lease
Organization.
agreement with?
It's,
Is it with an individual? Is it?
Well, I mean, the leagues have some sort of organization to them.
apparently not.
Legally, maybe not.
Well, legally, but no, they do. I mean,
They'll have to figure it out
That
if they
would
want to
be
use our field, right? That'd be their
Question for
side.
yeah.
How about the, go ahead.
I'm sorry, but who is the president of these leagues?
Yeah, so we know who the
There's a
presidents are.
governing body of
Yeah.
these leagues that somehow they're collecting money.
So,
In my experience over the last several years, like at various points of that, like, so who's on the board? It's like, I don't know. What are you talking about, a board? And okay, well, I guess it's all the coaches. Okay, it's all the coaches. So there's not been a lot of, and maybe we need to, I don't know, help. Like, this is how you would go about setting up an organization that can, not put you personally at risk when you're taking funds from other people. And
I mean, there's a sign that goes up saying we're having signups for football, for example. Who puts that up? The league?
I
Or the
don't want to
city?
mention any names here, but
But
the president of the league. Yeah.
The league puts that up.
Mhm.
It's not the city.
Yeah, it's not the city.
Okay, and so, I was kind of wondering about that with the basketball league, the indoor basketball.
So they may be more organized. Some of the other ones I know aren't. I don't know basketball situation. I think they might be a little bit. They may actually have a 501c3.
All right. Well, it sounds like we need to work with our leagues to become organized and,
I mean, if it were
That will help
me
them
and I were
to
asked to be a president,
self-sustain.
and I looked at that and I'd say, show me your, organizational documents, and I'd be like, oh, I'm not doing this. But I wouldn't take that risk. because you're asking people to give you money and then, yeah, I mean, you're using it for purposes that aren't laid out in a document, you know, like that.
Yeah, that's playing fast and loose a little bit.
And maybe they're just unaware that those were set up in the past. I don't know, you know, but as these things get passed down from president to president.
Well, we should, it seems like a very vague situation. How do you solve it? How do other towns do their leagues? You know, maybe we need to look into, see how other towns do it. If it's a function of the town, then the town's gonna be the one having to set the prices and fees for participation and doing all the work, which we enjoy not having to do right now.
I mean, my personal belief on that is that's not an appropriate. I don't think it's an appropriate role for the town to fulfill. I think it should be private.
Yeah.
And we talk about moving towards financial independence with Arts and Community Center by maybe helping facilitate these more formalized agreements and formalization of the leagues as fundraising bodies. Maybe they start to become more financially independent as well.
All right, well, I think that's a good role for the recreation board to have meetings with the leagues and tell them you'll need to become a self-sustaining organization and bring us your bylaws and documentation. Otherwise, we're not going to have that league. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, is that something that we want to say? Is that we want to have a lease agreement and we want with but as a body, like, when do we want to require that? Because I think a lot of them probably aren't prepared today. Some of them aren't prepared today to do that.
Maybe
So
even a
clearly
year.
they don't have insurance for their.
Oh, they get insurance. I don't know how the insurance company insures something that doesn't have a.
well, maybe we start by getting a copy of their insurance policy.
It
should list
I've
Signal
reviewed
Mountain.
those before. It lists the name of a league that nobody can provide an organization. Lists the name of an organization that nobody can provide me organizational documents. 'Cause if y'all recall, like a little over a year ago, I was proposing some changes for the rec board, and like that we would make it composed of the league heads. But we needed like some kind of barriers so that it's not just like, well, I just made the Andrew Gardner League for baseball, you know, and so I'm on the board. You needed to have a 501c3. So I started asking around, and they're like, what's that? We don't have that. So that's kind of how I did that research, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, somebody's going to need to have to jumpstart this conversation with them.
Yeah, I think the rec board's thought of requiring, it's something they had done in the past that's just kind of fallen by the wayside. Pre-season, you come in and you present to them what you plan on doing with the town resource that you're about to use.
Yeah.
And I think maybe bringing a financial component to that, and then that, at least until we're able to figure out the formalizing situation, you know, in that meeting, stating like, look, you know, you can lose your agreement here with us if you are purchasing Coca-Cola another way, because we need, you know, y'all want improvements on the fields, you want these newer things. This is a way to pay for them, and you're choosing not to do that.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good idea for a
Okay.
start.
We also need to fill 2 rec board seats.
Well, we're going to put the word out on that.
Get to advertise.
All right. Our next meeting is August 8th, and we are adjourned.